And welcome back again, ladies and gentlemen, to an extra special episode of the Lost Podcast of Titan. A father and son's journey to pitch movie and TV shows ideas to get our stuff on television and get paid. Yes,
That's right.
this is the episode where we try and put our money where our mouth is. We keep calling what we've been watching lately shit, and that we can do much better. Maybe we can, maybe we can't. But this will be our general movie pitch episodes, movies or TV shows, Star Trek and original IP, that sort of thing.
Yes.
But yeah. So the impetus is that sometimes when we were watching the really bad episodes, case in point, the alternative factors, that we would start riffing on how to make the episode better with just a few changes, or just coming up with ideas of TV shows and episodes and series on the spot.
Well, we can comfort ourselves with the knowledge that we may come up with the best material ever, but then it gets into the hands of the studios and such, and it gets turned around and completely ruined.
The studio bourgeoisie
Yeah,
bastards.
I'm sure that if Edgar Rice Burroughs had been alive to watch what the Disney studios did to A Princess of Mars, he would have stripped down to fighting leather and ridden a thoat into the studio grounds and beheaded all the people with his sword.
Oh please, Disney would have paid him $50 and he would have had a free sandwich in the commissary. He'd be all right. That's about all that series was worth anyway.
No, have you ever read the John Carter novels by Burroughs?
No, I like to spend my time doing worthwhile things.
It's a great action adventure series.
Oh,
I mean, it even comes off the page pretty easily. You don't have to really have it as a movie. It just runs itself. It's a great.
Yes, every page turner, a page turn to how much more of this shit do I have to deal with? Yep, John Carter wins, white savior syndrome, colonization bad, and moving on.
See, this is why I'm glad I'm doing this with you, because you have always been the harshest critic I've ever encountered. Not just my stuff, but everyone else's stuff. And I figure if I can sell a concept to you, I can sell a concept to anyone.
Well, that's true. Well, it's mostly I like to knock out the very obvious weak spots of a concept.
Yes.
But I'm also now fully aware of in between work and what I've been able to parse together of my own ideas, is that none of this shit is that solid. It's rickety houses of cards. So I'm like, oh well, shit. I'm going to be hoisted by my own petard.
Yes.
So anyway, who wants to go first? You want me to go first, or you go first?
I'm curious to hear what you have first. Off
All right. So, okay. I will be doing the Star Trek episode first. My Star Trek episode, or actually, this will probably be more of a series.
Oh, okay.
So this could be a mini series where it could set the foundations, and if it's well received, we can go full bore into its own spin-off. So I don't have a title, but this is the Star Trek: The Romulan Empire is my working title.
I think I see where this is going.
Yes. So the timeline will be 1 second. Sorry, I had to clear my throat there for a second. So the timeline will be in the last days, or maybe the last months or last year, of the Klingon-Romulan War. Okay. So the setting will be in the Imperial Senate as a general rule, which has facilities attached to it so that the senators and their immediate families can live there. And the idea I have is that by tradition, most high technology is not allowed in that area. So you don't have any phasers, no teleporters, nothing like that. So by the idea, the lip service is that it's because of tradition, but the reality is that
I didn't get that. Could you try again?
my watch just spoke to me. Why did my watch speak to
I
me?
heard that.
That was my watch, ladies and gentlemen. Oh,
Your
I think
watch doesn't like your idea.
probably not. No. Okay. So the lip service of the reason is that it's tradition, but the real reason is that most of the people of Romulus wants all the violence, backstabbing, chicanery to be localized in one area, because with no high technology, everything is now done with knives, poison, backstabbing, ambushes, that sort of thing. So I'm thinking like good old fashioned Byzantine politics.
Yes.
Yeah. And okay, so here we go. Da-da-da. Looking at my notes here. So there's going to be several factions because we need drama. And the first faction will be more of a matriarchal faction, headed by a lovely elder senator. I'm thinking like a Livia character from I Claudius.
Ah,
Very good at playing the political game, and I'm going to call her Livia for now because I don't really have a good tongue for Vulcan or Romulan names, so let's call her Livia. And her goal is to become Praetor herself as the first woman Praetor of Romulus. The current Praetor is kind of out of action. I'm guessing maybe he got injured, and everyone is all praying for his quick recovery, but really it's just a bunch of vultures circling around, debating whether they can make the move or not, getting support, all that such. So
time
Livia's
for me to make my
my
move.
move, yes.
That would be a bit too obvious.
Ah,
It would be nice, but it would be a bit too
well,
obvious.
these are Romulans. Like, I'm guessing by the first episode, most people who are not familiar with Romulans will realize they are very conniving, diabolical, especially when it comes to politics. Okay, so her goal is to become the first female praetor of Romulus, and make her heir the emperor or empress, and actually give that off his teeth. Because in the Romulan structure of things, the emperor is more of a ceremonial role, but she wants to establish an actual bloodline and give it power so that her heirs will rule Romulus. So that's her goal. Her chief rival is an up and comer, and unlike most of the Romulan senators, he is actually more concerned for the people. He's got a very base populist support, very rah rah, and he's an agitator. But he shows himself adept at picking up the rules of the game that is being played in the Senate. So there are, he's naive in some regards, but you can only use some tricks once. And even then, after a few tricks, he'll actually start picking up on the subtle clues that something's amiss, and it'd be very difficult to put something over him. And because, again, I'm not really good at Romulan names, I'm going to call him Mr. Smith. He sees the decay of the Empire as a duty. He sees decay in the Empire, and he thinks the duty of the Senate is to actually help strengthen and boost the Romulan people itself. He's not an expansionist. And so the last faction is what I like to call the Warhawks. That's very obvious of what their deal is. We could put a standard issue general type in charge of them. They feel Romulus's issues is that it's not as expansionist as it could be, and that if they just start pushing on the borders, they'll get resources and volunteers, and that'll be a boost to the people of Rome and such like that. So they think things will be made better by conquest.
Okay.
So we have one faction that thinks we need a strong leader, one that thinks we need to put more power at the people, and the other one that thinks we just need an outside threat. Okay. And then we have the stragglers, who are not exactly aligned with any of the factions. So they go back and forth on some issues, and one of our main focuses there is a kind of a crippled idiot senator who no one really sees as a threat. He's harmless and generally ignored, and we follow him. He's basically an XP for, when he stumbles into an area, they have to explain to him what's going on because he's an idiot, and that's a good way for our audience to figure out also what's going on. All right, so that's the setting and the general characters. The issue, the inciting action, is that for the last few years, the Klingons have been basically pushing on the borders of the Romulan Empire and taking worlds. Okay. So they're slowly losing the war with the Klingons. And the three factions all have three different ways to actually settle the issue. Where Livia, she wants to repel the Klingons and reestablish the borders and strengthen the defense. Mr. Smith wants basically just, let the fucking Klingons have the border worlds. We don't really use them anyway. Pull our stuff back, defend the core worlds, and focus on the people there. And the generals want to push back and take all of their shit in addition to what we had lost during the war so far. So there's a big vote in the Senate coming, and everything is evenly tied between the three, and the plot moves on because rather than convincing some of the senators, this is Romulus, so we kill some of the opposing senators. So one of Mr. Smith's senators in his faction is killed, and Livia makes a bargain with the generals. So they go to the Klingons. So the Romulans go to full war with the Klingon Empire, and we can, space this out with a few impressive space fights while this is all going on. Unfortunately, the war is not going to go well because the Klingons seem to know the Romulans' plans. So clearly there is a spy, but who? Mr. Smith and Livia are the prime suspects, as it would weaken the generals. They wind up tearing each other apart, and the war is pretty much almost lost. Like they're all in a panic. Hannibal is at the gates, that sort of thing. But then it is revealed that the crippled idiot is actually the spy who was giving the Klingons the information. So he, once the moment is right, he gives the Klingons false information, gives orders to the Klingons' fleet, and basically is like a scythe through the Klingon armada, because now suddenly, their master plan was revealed, and the Romulans took the opportunity to strike them at the moment when they were very weak, and pretty much decimated the Klingon war fleet. He forms a peace treaty with the Klingons, and since the Klingons have just had their asses kicked there, they respect the Romulans, so they become allies with them. This is basically the start of the Klingon-Romulan alliance that was whispered about. And the idiot, since he was the one who basically saved Romulus, is able to rally enough support, and thus begins the reign of Praetor Claudius. And that was basically the series I had in mind, the major beats of it. So I was thinking like a mix between I Claudius and Game of Thrones. Plenty of violence, plenty of political intrigue, chicanery, lots of sex, that sort of thing. All right, so what do you think?
You have to work on your presentation.
Well, yeah.
No, I'm serious. Because you're trying to convince a bunch of cocaine sniffing, secretary stooping clowns.
Oh, I would just simply say Romulan tits and ass, and be like, sold.
Actually, you might be better off with that. You know how they sold the movie idea for Top Gun?
No. How did they sell the movie idea for Top Gun?
Essentially, someone just wrote a note on a piece of paper or a napkin and passed it to another guy, and it said, "Fighter Jocks and MTV."
Mm.
But I do see where you're going.
Yeah.
I like the idea of setting the series near the end of the Romulan, near or on the end of the Romulan Klingon War. Be a very visually dramatic setting, And I think in terms of your source material, you need to concentrate on Game of Thrones, I, Claudius, and Shakespeare's Richard III. You also need to work at tightening up your characters. Maybe in the initial part, reducing your list of characters to the top, the very top tier, and at that point, I would say, okay, what I'd like to see is outline for the episodes. If this is going to be a mini series, and
Well,
then make a decision as to whether or not to call for a pilot episode or test footage.
well, yeah, that's true. Oof. This isn't good.
Oh,
Oh, I am wounded. I am wounded.
oh
Oh,
well, join the club.
I've gotten my paperback and it's bled upon with red ink. See me after class.
Yeah, doesn't that bring back memories?
It does, actually. I was also trying to do this while I was working double shifts, so that's also my fault.
Okay, yeah, you need to focus.
I do. Oof. But yeah, it's just that I want to do a spin-off series of the better Star Trek factions, and I understand there's going to be issues with the makeup costs, so that's why I decided we should go with Romulans first because that just requires some ears. And
Or you can have some of the lower echelon people wearing those helmets that they wore in the episodes.
I never liked those helmets.
Well, yes, but it's a cost-cutting method.
Well, they could wear hoods. I mean, they could.
Yes, they could.
But if it does well, we could do Cardassians and Romulan and Klingons.
True.
Of course, we could also do the Borg TV series.
Yeah.
What would an episode of the Borg TV series be like?
I don't know. On the onset, yeah, it would sound interesting, but I would other than having just episodes of Borg's drones standing around and then saying I've got to go recharge, and
Oh, clearly. Oh, dang. So clearly, what it would need to be is a Robinson Crusoe in space, where a family shuttle basically accidentally crashes into a Borg cube, and they're so harmless, and their technology is so worthless that the Borg just basically ignore them, and they have to survive on the Borg cube while trying to figure out a way to get off. Am I about to be thrown out of out of the executive meeting? Like, get this man out of here.
you might just want to stick with your original concept for the time being. Get some fanish support and bring in some ratings.
Ratings don't matter on TV. What are you talking about?
Well, maybe they don't nowadays, but eventually certain people are going to come to their senses and realize that if no one's watching what they're producing, then what the hell good is it?
Brownie points, clearly. But anyway, so what's your idea?
Well, I'll start out with my idea for a Lieutenant Uhura episode.
Okay.
Or maybe at this point she would be a Commander Uhura.
Okay.
We see her. She is on an assignment. She's teaching a class in communication technology at Starfleet Academy. She also dabbles in research.
Mm-hmm.
And we see her. She's wandering around this enormous machine, and she's pointing out and demonstrating details to the members of this race. It's a race of they look like enormous slugs with antennae and tentacles at one end. They've just been newly admitted to the Federation, and they're on an information and technology exchange program. And then Uhura, suddenly there's an alarm going on everywhere, and Uhura has to excuse herself, and she vanishes. And it turns out that what we were seeing was just a hologram of her, because the new aliens are this race, this really incredible race of microscopic. The slugs are about the size of a virus, and yet they've been able to develop interstellar technology and such, and they're working out the details of how to communicate more clearly.
Okay.
Well, anyway, the laboratory or area where she is in has been under attack or something, or either there was a massive breakdown and such, and the aliens that are under her charge are unable to get back to their special capsule slash starship. So Uhura takes the unprecedented move of gathering up. There are about 230,000 aliens right there. She takes the entire colony that is she's in charge of and injects it into her own bloodstream.
Oh dear.
And the aliens, they can survive, and they settle in her cerebral cortex.
Oh.
And now, while Uhura is trying to get things worked out, she is suddenly picking up bits and pieces of individual memories and minds from the aliens. So it's like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde on steroids. She keeps getting interrupted by these personalities and things that are bursting into her consciousness. She could be walking, normal one moment, trying to get to where she can get some better help, and all of a sudden her personality shifts. She's a angered lover, or she's the head of a security agency, or she's an inmate in some sort of asylum, and she's having to struggle to keep herself in dominance until she can get to a point where the aliens can be withdrawn and placed in their own little environment. So it's essentially a one-person show.
Well, I mean, where would she be? Who would she be reacting to then? Or she's just like in a room where.
She's in a research facility that has been adapted so that she can project holograms
Right.
of herself inside the piece of communication technology that she was demonstrating.
But she's the only one on the station or the research facility.
She's the only one in the immediate area, and whatever disaster has happened has sealed her and the aliens off from everyone else. They can't, break in with transporter beams or anything like that.
Well, that'll really cut down on the extras cost.
Yes. Plus, it would give, Nichelle Nichols a chance to really go all out with her acting chops. I mean, any actor worth the name would, I think, jump at a chance to try something like that.
It could work. Like I could see it as a Star Trek episode, like maybe even more of a Star Trek Next Generation episode.
I have an idea for a Next Generation episode.
Oh well, I mean, hold off here. I'm coming
Okay.
up next. It'd also be kind of cool if maybe because of their presence in her mind, there are some slight alterations that can't be undone just by the removal of the inhabitants, the hitchhikers.
Ah, they leave permanent effects.
Yes. Maybe she's. Like she's now more apt to their technology because she knows how they think. Because you know how sometimes your language dictates your thoughts dictate your actions, that sort of thing. So that we have different cultures here where because of how you would express things like time, they don't have concept of time, and how that affects their culture, that sort of thing.
Okay.
Is that what makes sense?
Yes. I mean, we can't expect every intelligent species to have the same time sense.
Mm-hmm. But okay, I'd be interested in seeing that episode.
Ah, okay, good.
Doesn't have enough action for my taste. I don't see her karate chopping anybody. Uh, but I'm kind of
Well,
interested.
maybe she one of the aliens that possess her is very suspicious of outsiders, and while it's in control, it works to prevent her from reaching out to help. It
Or
might be
works to
attacking
try and
someone who.
or works to try and to kill herself.
Yes.
Because I mean, if they're the size of a virus, give or take, uh, they probably don't need air. But
No, if they can also survive in her bloodstream and such.
yeah,
It's a completely. I mean, everyone would have bet the ranch on the fact that life forms this small would not be able to create a interstellar technology or anything like that.
hmm
And so their presence comes as an enormous surprise.
it might be more beneficial if they are actually the size of bacteria.
Perhaps.
Yeah, because viruses are incredibly small compared to bacteria, and bacteria are incredibly small by their own rights.
Or at least single celled organisms.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah. Like that damn space bear or whatever the fuck it is. Uh, it's the immortal bacteria thing. You know what I'm talking about?
No.
Oh, hold on, let me. Immortal parasite bear thing. Hold on. Tardigrade. That's it. It can actually survive space.
Oh, okay.
Cause yeah, it looks like basically a bear with a snout. It's weird. Okay, so let me see what I have next. Maybe I can do better with this one. All right. So my next idea is no title yet. The timeline is a few decades into the future and maybe 50 years, probably tops. So the setting, and this is not Star Trek. This is its own thing.
Oh,
So the setting is it's on Earth. Most of humanity is under the auspices of a generalized government. It's mostly like a trading bloc with a minimum floor of human rights, and countries now exist mostly as like cultural identifiers. So we still have places like, you know,
give me an example of what you mean by cultural identifiers.
oh,
For
that's dangerous. So we have the American United States of America as its own country. So we have our unity with 50 states. We have our local state governments and our federal government, which handles mostly what am I saying? So here, okay, so
it's
Canadians
tribalism to the extreme, in other words.
kind of, but there's no real borders, so things are just sort of kind of melting. But this is only like 50 years tops into the future, so the quote unquote melting pot hasn't quite finished cooking. It has only just started cooking.
Ah,
Japan still is mostly filled with Japanese. We have Russians with their vodka, Germans with their bratwurst, that sort of thing, and they still have their own governments. But most of the policies and economic tax policies are handled by this generalized government that is actually where is it? Hold on. Uh, everything is not perfect, but it is running remarkably better as most of these policy decisions are instituted by a machine learning algorithm. So we've gone to the point where we have basically there was a project where they fed this machine, all the data from how governments have been running, and then gave it really accurate models on how people react, how trade works, all that sort of thing. and let it run, and all of a sudden it started becoming better at running countries than those who were actually running them. And slowly, slowly, bit by bit, we were handing off more and more of the more technical aspects of government to the machine. Like, how much should taxes be? Uh, how should trade work? What, how are these laws going to be written? That sort of thing. So it's very, very policy and very wonky stuff.
Hmm.
And so the environment is being repaired. The economy worldwide has a true statement for once of rising tide lift all boats, all that bullshit. So everyone's seeing that things are actually getting better by leaving it to this, uncaring machine that has figured out theoretically how to run the government. And there's still the illusion of control for the local governments, like the United States Congress still exists. We still elect a president, et cetera, et cetera. And there's the joke. Well, what does he really do? It's more of a ceremonial role kind of now. They still do some policies. It's get a new holiday, whatever, that sort of thing. But it's not a utopia, but it's getting to the point where like everything's not shit, which is a remarkable improvement. So the general premise of what I have for this, because that's just the setting. The movie itself, I want to have as kind of a detective thriller. Uh, we have a guy with a classic dark tragic past, kicked off the police force, still has friends there, yada yada. But he picks up a case because he's been tapped. Uh, oh, excuse me. Because this is weird, and they need someone who kind of knows more what they're doing. And basically, it's a gruesome torture kill. And I want to play it like the movie Seven, where you really just see the aftermath, hinting at the details of what actually happened. And so now we have a case, and it goes through the motions of a detective drama. Uh, he's running checks on the victim to figure out, so what made this victim stand out, what happened, etc., etc. Doesn't find anything out of the ordinary. The victim didn't have any enemies that he was aware of, because with social media being what it is, he has a pretty clear idea of the guy's life up to that point, and it was fairly normal. So there's no clear indication or direction of who actually performed the murder, only that the murder took place. And unfortunately, a short while later, in another part of the world, another murder happens just as gruesome. And it follows the pattern of the murder itself, but the evidence suggests that it was a different killer. So we have copycats, is the idea.
Oh.
Yes. And it's very, very odd because even with copycats, there are, uh, since they don't release the details of the murder exactly, then a copycat will typically make mistakes to indicate that they read this in the newspaper and they decided to give it a go and are doing it in their own way because they don't know all the details of what the original murderer did. But in this case, it was fairly accurate to a scary degree, but a different murderer. So it's like they're sharing a set of rules. And so our killer, one of the killers slips up and actually leaves enough of a clue so that our detective can track them down. But the interrogation doesn't really make much sense because the killer is convinced the person that they had brutally murdered was an existential threat to themselves, their family, and their community. And as the detective looks into this, he pieces together that through social media, the killers were basically programmed to zero in on a target and kill them as instructed. But who's doing the targeting, and why are the instructions done? Because uh, I'm horrible at mangling this. Blah.
You are, yes.
Sorry. Basically, the climax of the film reveals that it's actually the machine learning algorithm setting up these murders, because through its study of human history and government, it finds that people are better controlled if they have an external threat to focus on. If everything became too utopian-like, then order and respect of law would break down. Like if if crime became so non-existent that there were hardly any cops, why would anyone follow traffic laws? It would start with the small infractions and become larger and larger, and suddenly there would be anarchy. So what the machine algorithm does is it creates a victim and a murderer through it marks a victim, and then through social media and suggestions, it will basically program someone to kill them, and it's all done randomly, so that there's never really a clear figure about who's actually the murderer. And as a result, people are terrified that it could be them, and it gives an excuse to have the police force remain. And who's going to believe the detective when he tries to explain that the machine algorithm is arranging people's murders? And what if the people who do believe him determine that it's an acceptable cost in order to get the benefits of the society that they currently have? But that's the premise of that story.
So, okay, let me see if
Yeah.
I can narrow this down.
Yeah.
In order to keep a society
Yes.
from ending up being stagnant.
Or not standing, just more anarchy. So if there's no police, the idea was that the reason why we obey laws as a general rule is the fear of punishment.
So we have to have a reason for
Yes.
some punishment to be produced.
Yes.
So the machines are working on an algorithm that would establish maybe not consciously, but established a criminal class that can be directed against the overall citizen body.
It's a standing threat. So basically, the algorithm can, turn up or turn down the crimes and the violence as needed.
But apparently, they need to work. The machine or machines need to work a bit more or at least on their method of delivery, because you have this human who has managed to catch a glimpse into what is going on.
Right. But
And
who would believe them?
true, but I still would think that would make him an obvious target
That's also
for the
true.
for the
Yeah.
machines. They obviously the machines would have to move carefully so as not to show their hand, but they still see this person as a threat. In fact, didn't you start out by specifying that your hero had been thrown off the force?
Yeah.
Maybe that was an initial. Maybe the ruling machine class saw him early on as a possible threat and decided to try and neutralize him without going to the obvious step of killing him immediately.
That could work. Yeah. I got the idea kind of from the movie Cube, where it was revealed. Spoilers. It was revealed one of the participants of the Cube was actually one of the designers, and he never asked questions about what he was designing, even though it was clearly batshit insane. You know, why would anyone want a cube by these dimensions, etc., etc.?
Yeah.
And it made me wonder, like, how far would this actually go? Where it's just, the orders came, and you follow the orders. It's like this whole business with our current Justice Department, where they were clearly given orders that were clearly legal, but they clearly did them anyway.
You put me in mind of a story
yeah, there's that one.
appeared in an issue of Galileo magazine in the early '80s. There was this long-term space mission from Earth. It would take around 5 or so years for this crew to complete their mission throughout the solar system. And someone came up with the bright idea of pre-programming mishaps and such to keep the crew from getting lazy or keep the crew on its toes.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting. Did they?
I think
they have
the secrets eventually came out.
Okay.
If that's what you were heading for.
Huh. Did they have ways to actually make sure that the issues were not catastrophic, I guess?
It would be things like the cooling unit for the food stocks would suddenly switch off. Or there would be a communications breakdown between Earth and the spacecraft. Not an ongoing one, but not really life-threatening, but just enough to force the crew, to prod the crew towards buckling down and getting things repaired.
Yeah, okay. That would make sense.
Okay. I like this idea better than your previous idea, but once again, you need to kind of tighten it up a bit.
Yeah. Well, this is true.
Okay.
Okay. So what's your next idea?
Well, let me go ahead and throw out my next generation episode idea. I actually have a title for this one. It's called One Drop of Blood.
Oh, okay.
And the Enterprise is chugging along doing whatever it is, keeping track of whose apartment Riker is going to sneak into this time. But when they receive a message from Starfleet saying that war has broken out between Beta Z and Triskelion.
Oh. Damn, okay.
And you remember Triskelion, of course.
Yes, the tricksters of Triskelion.
Gamesters of Triskelion, but yeah. But anyway, a message that's telling ship crews and captains and stuff, if you have any Beta Zs or people from Triskelion on board your ship, you might want to try and keep things on an even keel until the situation is resolved. And of course, you've got Deanna Troi from Beta Z, and they also have this one crew person from Triskelion.
Mm-hmm.
And as if we expand on the concept that was introduced in Games of Triskelion, we know that Triskelion is a hodgepodge of various races that have been gradually adapting into a single species.
Right.
And the Federation has been wanting to keep in touch and good relations with Triskelion to see if the providers could somehow fine-tune their ability to snatch people from distant parts of the galaxy and turn it into some kind of emergency teleportation network. But anyway...
Why does it have to be emergency teleportation network?
Because the providers can only teleport just a few people at a time.
Oh,
so
okay.
it would have to be, special personnel that the providers would be asked to beam from one planet to another. I mean, we haven't yet figured out they can beam people to Triskelion, but they haven't yet learned how to make it kind of like a way station and send the people to another destination. But that's not that's the reason for having a relationship with Triskelion. But the real problem is that Picard immediately takes steps to see that his Triskelion crew member and Deanna Troi don't start trouble, And Deanna is enough of a Beta Z patriot to where she feels a sense of duty towards Beta Z to act in regards to the war. And the Triskelion crew member feels the same way, and Picard is sort of going crazy here. It says, can't you two just get along? And Troy and the Triskelion crew member says, they tell Picard, it says, this has all been worked out beforehand. It's not going to be much of a war if you just let it run its course. And they can't go into too much detail, but the Triskelion crew member makes a first move even before the notion of the war is sunk in. He accidentally trips against Troy and places a handheld drug on her head, and what it does is it shields him from her mental powers, as weak as they may be. So he's leveled the playing field between them. And he, of course, Picard puts him in not under restrained quarters, and pretty much does the same thing with Deanna, because he can't figure out why in the world is she acting the way she is. And they keep both breaking out of quarters and spend a good deal of the episode continually hunting one another, getting more and more vicious and subtle and such like that, despite all attempts to keep those two people under control. And it finally gets to a single ultimate confrontation between the two people, Deanna and the crew person. And there's a brief scuffle, and then just as Picard and security are about to open fire on them with heavy stun, Deanna makes a sudden move and manages to scratch the Triskelion crew member with the edge of a blade. And they both immediately turn to Picard and say, "It's over." Because by the rules that they established long ago in case hostilities broke out, the war would be settled by whoever drew the first drop of blood.
Okay.
No need for enormous armies or fleets or anything like that. Just the first Betazoid or the first Triskelion person who manages to draw a single drop of blood from the opponent, that decides the war. The word is automatically sent out to both societies, and hostilities are ceased, and negotiations for peace continue. This way they prevent, annihilation of a species. But for various reasons, which I may have to work out, they were not allowed to discuss the details of strategy with people who were not from Beta Z or from Triskelion. So it mystified the other crew people of the Enterprise.
We cannot tell you this is our culture, this is our way, so to speak.
Yes.
So
this is what they decided.
What were they fighting about, though?
That was something else that I would have to work out in the episode. It was just something, relations just deteriorated.
Okay, I guess I can see that.
But see, it's not, the war is just the MacGuffin to have an episode of Troy and this one crew person hunting each other throughout the Enterprise.
I do like that idea of because Deanna Troy, I feel she needed to get some more action.
She needed to be less of a wussy.
That too, yes.
And I want to say we did not. That despite all the seasons of Next Generation, there were still parts of the Beta Z culture that we were not aware of. And plus, I wanted to touch base again with Triskelion, showing what has become of that planet since the gamesters of Triskelion. There would be one point where Picard is personally confining the Triskelion crew person in the quarters, and says, to the crew person, "Is this really necessary? Does your history allow this sort of thing?" And the crew person says, That's surprising coming from the captain of the Enterprise, which I thought would be a nice remark if handled properly.
Yeah. Huh. It's missing a green-haired, buxom woman to seduce, I feel.
Uh, if the person from Triskelion was of the female variety, uh, maybe Riker could try and run interference on his own by trying to divert her from going after Troy.
Quote-unquote interference.
Yeah.
Riker, good job. You managed to distract. Distract? Good job. Distract? Oh, yes. Yes, of course. Done on purpose.
I was also thinking of bringing in a random comment how how they got in touch with another Triskelion crew person on another ship, and he turned out to be the descendant of Tamoon, who managed to fool around and do the dirty with Chekhov, and they had a child.
Oh dear. Oh, that'd be kind of cool. Okay, all right, that's kind of.
Because
cool.
I always liked Tamoon. I thought she wasn't nearly as nasty as some people they tried to portray her.
She was going to execute Chekhov by snoo snoo, which is not that bad of a way to go.
Well, I don't know if execute was the right term, but she apparently had the hotties for our young Russian friend.
Well, who doesn't? I mean, we just watched what was the episode? It's the High Noon Bullet.
Yeah.
Stranger with a
Spectre of
gun.
the Gun.
Spectre of the Gun. Yes. Yeah, he almost got
scored
lucky
with a
there.
Melkoshian.
Yeah, exactly. Imagine
And I mean,
getting
finally,
that job.
yeah, and it would finally occur to him, he would suddenly remember what the Melkoshians actually look like, and he'd go, "Ew."
Now, I'm sure Chekhov is above such things. Actually, wasn't there a line in one of the movies where his niece or his daughter was an officer now?
You're thinking of the Star Trek Generations, where Sulu's daughter is the new helmsperson of the Enterprise.
Oh, that's right. Yes. Okay. Oh, how'd they grow up?
Yes.
Oh,
And Kirk was really amazed at how much he'd grown, and he says, "When did Sulu find time to have a child?" Says, "You make the time, Captain." And this, of all things, from Chekhov.
yes. That was a stink. Well, I mean, wait, hold on. Kirk had a kid. Kirk probably had several kids, but he had at least one that he
Yeah.
abandoned.
Yeah, pretty much. Well, there's a difference between being a father and being a parent. You can be one without necessarily being the other.
Oh, that's deep.
Oh, thank you. My goodness, I'm really piling up the accolades in this episode.
Clearly, this episode has shown that one of us is able to do presentations better than the other.
Well, one of us, I think, has had more practice.
Probably, yes.
Okay, but let's go ahead and... Where are we right about now?
I don't know. I'm sitting down.
53 minutes.
Well,
we can go for maybe one more concept each.
Well, I mean, those are my concepts. I did have a rapid fire one that it's a setting, and I don't quite know how to make it work. But I want to do it's a collective city on the basically the cusp of the event horizon of a black hole.
Oh.
So the way I picture it is that civilizations will come to a threshold of technology where they are able to actually explore, send probes and ships into the black hole, but naturally it can't actually come out. But since they are trapped there, they start forming these cities. So, it started with one ship, then another ship joined, and another. So over the course of, millions, if not billions of years, we have a nice, healthy-sized city basically stuck in time on the edge of a black hole where they neither move forward or backward in the real sense of the universal time. But what I have is, since it's a hodgepodge of all these cultures, it would be basically a nice cornucopia of visual delights. You know, all the weird stuff. We
Oh,
get Tim Burton coming in doing
oh,
aliens. Well, I mean the good Tim Burton.
oh. Okay.
But I wanted to do a noir detective. I don't know why haven't been on a detective kick lately, but
I was going to ask the same thing.
basically, since how time works here, he discovers his own murder and has to figure out, what happened and can he even really avoid it if this is where they are. Like, how does time actually work in the black hole? And that's where I'm at. I really don't know how to work out that conundrum. It's just that's the setting I want. That's the character. That's the crux. He's trying to solve his own murder,
Or hopefully prevent it.
or hopefully prevent it.
That would be nice.
Hmm.
Okay. The setting is what really is grabbing me here.
Yeah, like I mean, I thought of the setting. And I'm like, oh, this is good, but I don't know how to work it out yet.
Yeah.
I need to like spend a few more days with actual time to sit and just chew on it, because I can picture it, because I have this idea of he does the monologue thing, okay,
Yeah.
but because of how time works, he's actually doing the monologue off to his side. He's like watching himself as he's doing it.
Okay.
Yeah, but yeah, that's it. What do you got?
Okay, I'll go ahead and do one of my non-Star Trek ideas. In fact, you might remember this because I pitched it sort of to you years and years ago.
Okay, all right.
The concept is called Road World. I had,
Oh yeah, I remember this one.
oh, okay.
This is the I think you pitched it as a video game.
Yeah, I pitched it as a video game, but I think it could work as an action adventure film
Okay.
for the benefit of the audience who didn't have the who didn't have the benefit of hanging around with us during formative years. This enormous alien artifact wanders into our solar system and takes up residence in about the same orbit as the moon from the Earth. It studied through telescopes and such, it seems to be made of endless layers of bands, which could almost be called roads in a certain light. And there's some sort of power transmission that seems to be deep within the core of this artifact, but they can't get a good look at it. So an expedition is sent to the planet, and they arrive and they travel into the world, essentially using these roads as a means of getting there, and contact is lost.
Hmm.
So they have something has to be done to try and recover the team of scientists. So they find this person, and this is in this part of the future. Personal driving ability is not as common as it used to be. Most vehicles are automated and such like that. But he is a hobbyist. He has been refurbishing old style cars and such. And so he can operate on his own as a driver. So they construct a special vehicle for him. And they say that, they want him, they're going to send him in the vehicle to Road World. And he's going to, drive like a mofo, dodging problems and broken pathways and stuff to try and get to the center of the planet and find the scientist and get them back out to Earth. And that's my pitch, rather short and to the point, but there it is.
Well, I mean, I like it.
And it's
still
not
think,
just one vehicle; it's actually three vehicles, one nested within the other. And as the outer vehicle gets damaged and stuff, our pilot can take off in the next level vehicle.
Mhm. But I still feel I think this would work work better as a game itself.
Yeah.
But no, I liked it. Okay. Would there be guns in combat? Would there be
Well,
daring do?
they would arm the vehicle with weapons, and he would have personal weapons because, everyone has to come up and face the possibility that there is some kind of hostile force inside Road World that our hero might have to overcome through gunplay.
And what about the love interest?
Oh. Okay, I haven't considered a love interest yet. I was thinking more in terms of a 1970s film called Vanishing Point. Have you ever seen that?
No, I have not, but I think I need to. I think that was the one that Tarantino was gushing about.
Okay, there is another film called Vanishing Point. This isn't it. This is Barry. Oh God, I can't remember his last name, but this is one of my favorite films. It doesn't get shown often enough. He is a former fighter pilot and such back in the Vietnam War. He went a little crazy, and he's now a regular druggie and such, and he has a job of transporting cars from one city to another, individual cars, not driving an automobile transporter.
Mm-hmm.
And they got an order. He's, I think, in either Denver, Colorado, or something like that. And they got an order to deliver this car, real high-powered car, to someone in Los Angeles. And he makes this bet with one of the people that he can get from where he is to Los Angeles in like a specific amount of time. It's the sort of time says they're saying you'll never be able to make it. You'll have to drive like a maniac to make it. And he takes the bet, and he starts racing, across the desert between the two locations to reach Los Angeles.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, every cop in the world gets in the business of tracking him down, pursuing him. And there's also this, which I thought was interesting, really interesting, this blind black DJ called Super Soul, who's operating out of this little podunk radio station in the middle of the desert. And he is able to monitor police bands and stuff, and so he's tracking. Kowalski's the name the actor plays. He's tracking Kowalski, and he's also broadcasting details to his audience of how good or how bad Kowalski is getting. And somehow sort of a psychic connection develops between them to where at some points they're actually able to talk to each other without being in contact as Kowalski just races. A lot of incredible action in this.
They telepathically start communicating with each other.
Not overtly and not a great deal. It's just at one point Kowalski, he's stuck in the desert. He's been kind of hemmed in. The police haven't caught up with him yet, but he knows that whatever direction he travels, he's going to run into some serious police action. And he's sitting in his car, and he's going super, and you cut the Super Soul in his control room at the radio station, and he goes, "What?" And they have a brief sort of conversation trying to get things organized in terms of which way Kowalski goes.
That's a little weird.
Well, that's how they were playing it, and I just ate it up, and it's sort of what you consider a cult classic these days.
Yeah, I think this is the one that Tarantino was talking about. This is his inspiration for Death Proof.
Ah.
You've seen Death Proof?
No, I haven't. I've heard of it, but I haven't seen it.
It's pretty good. It's got a good ending. But I think that would do it for us. Clearly, Papa is the winner.
Yay!
Ding, 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 ding.
The light he has suddenly seen the light.
Oh, Lord.
Or at least you want to get in touch with me if you ever decide to flesh these ideas out. And
oh, that's also true, yeah. But let's see. What are we doing next week?
We're up to no good next week, I'll bet.
Probably. The Day of the Dove. An entity traps the
yeah.
Enterprise crew. Oh, this is the disabled Klingon battle cruiser. Okay.
Yeah.
This might be good.
It'll be definitely be an improvement.
Yes. From Spectre of the Gun, and the children shall lead. Law. Okay, but anyway, I hope y'all enjoyed this, ladies and gentlemen, and we will catch y'all next time.
And by all means, get in touch with us at lostpodcast@gmail.com and let us know what you think of our ideas, and especially how wonderful mine are.
This is true. Okay. Take care, everybody.
Okay, behave.